When it comes to retirement, there are some secrets that the super rich, the ultra wealthy can teach us when it comes to living a stress-free and meaningful retirement. Today, I'm going to dive into some of these things and a lot more. Keep it right here. Good day, everybody. Chris Heerlein here of REAP Financial, host of Wealth Radio on KLBJ and host of Retire Ready TV on KXAN. Be sure and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications as I drop new content on our channel every Wednesday. Today, I want to talk about some of the secrets to retiring successfully and stress-free. And you want to make sure and stay with me till the end because the last point I'm going to make is often overlooked and you can't afford to miss it. The first secret to retiring stress-free is starting as early as possible. When you think about time, it's the greatest asset you have, and often a lot of people don't take advantage of it. They just say, well, I'll get to it next year, or I'll start saving more the following year. The earlier you can do this, in many cases, the sooner you can retire. The sooner you will find yourself being in a position where your assets will generate the income that you need and more. The thing about the consistency in saving, that is a huge key, because if you set things on autopilot, you're paying yourself first, whether it's your 401k, whether it's another contribution to a brokerage account, whether you're putting money in an IRA or a health savings account, these things will work for you as they're invested and break a sweat for you. And the sooner you can get started in being consistent in your savings, believe it or not, the less you have to save every month. Because again, the power of time. So the consistency is a huge part of this. Now, another thing to consider is when you're getting a raise through the years, whether you're in your 20s right now or your 50s watching this, as you get a raise, let's say you get a 3 or 4% raise, that's a great time to go in and automate that increase in your contribution, whether it's your 401k or your contribution, your IRA, increase it by 3 or 4%. Whatever you're doing, you'll barely even feel it, if anything at all. And that approach, that consistency will add up and pay big yield over time. Now, let's say that you are a little late to the game. Let's say you are just getting started. Maybe you're in your 40s and 50s. It's not too late. That's the first thing to know. It just means, like I said earlier, you're going to probably have to do a little bit more than you normally would have had to do back in your 20s and 30s. But again, setting up a payroll deduction is the easiest way to get in the savings game. That's your 401ks, your 403bs. Because if you don't see the money, typically you don't spend it. Also, when you're in your 50s, a lot of you may have kids that are getting off payroll, that have been, living in the house or maybe going through college. This is a great opportunity to take the funds, identify the funds that you were spending on that kid or multiple kids, and immediately start shifting that over to your future retirement accounts. Because again, if you don't see it, you don't spend it. Now, if you're in your 40s, a good metric is you need to have at least 3 years salary saved to be on track to retire at around 65. If you're in your 50s, if you're in your 50s, you need to have at least 5 times your salary saved by the time you're hitting 59 and a half, 60. That's a good metric. And then once you get into your 60s, you typically want to have about 8 to 11 times saved by the time you're hitting 70 to be able to retire successfully. Now, that's just a standard rule of thumb. It's not a one size fits all. But for those of you that are maybe getting a little late into the game, that's a good metric for you to be going after. Now, another point is to invest wisely, truly diversify. And there's 2 types of diversification. One is not talked about a whole lot in the investment world. When you think about diversification, you're thinking about your 401k, you're thinking about your mutual funds, and maybe some stocks that you own, and you don't want everything in one company stock, obviously, and maybe you've got some small cap and some mid cap, some large cap, some international, some emerging markets. When you think about your 401k options, many of you, it's just eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You kind of set it and forget it. A lot of you use target date funds, and that's fine to an extent, but we don't want everything in one asset class. We don't want everything in the stock market typically. We want to hold cash that's paying a 4.5% yield today with today's high interest rates. Cash is not dead money anymore as long as you have it positioned correctly. We want real estate in the portfolio. That's a great opportunity, whether it's physical, whether it's rental properties, or you can invest in real estate passively. That's a great way. Are you looking at metals like gold and silver for more higher end retirees, meaning you've done a good job savings, you've got a nice net worth? In that case, diversifying in metals may make sense. But the other type of diversification I'm talking about that is often overlooked and probably just as important is tax diversification. Are you investing in ways that you're going to be able to pull this money out down the road and not get taxed to death? And I'll just paint a quick picture for you. If you got everything in an IRA or a 401k, in that case, the money is always going to be taxable as income. And that's taxable as income potentially down the road when tax rates are higher. If you have money in brokerage accounts, well, that money won't be taxed until you sell the securities or whatever asset you hold in there. At that point, that causes a capital gain tax if there's appreciated assets in there. Now that generally, well, let's just say under today's law is taxed more favorably. 15 and 20% is the top tax rate on cap gains. Whereas many of you, your income tax bracket is probably 22 to could be 32%, right in that range. So we've got tax diversification there. Then we've got banks and money markets and assets that generate interest and dividends. You're paying tax on that year over year, right? 1099s. And the thing about your cash, you may be sitting on a lot of cash that's getting that nice dividend in today's interest rate environment, but you still got to pay tax on the money you're not using at the end of the year. Then you've got Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, and health savings accounts. If invested correctly, utilized correctly, that money will come out forever tax-free, even if it's doubled, tripled in value. So all these different types of tax classes can give you control of your tax bracket long-term in retirement. And I always challenge our retirees out there, our viewers, if you've got everything in a traditional IRA, traditional 401k, and you're making double-digit returns every year, what's the point if you have no plan to keep it via tax? So really be thinking about your asset diversification, but just as importantly, your tax diversification. Let me just take a quick second to make sure you visit us at reapfinancial.com. That's REAP financial.com to get access to our free retirement resources for all of you that are soon to be retired or already to be retired. That's reapfinancial.com. And be sure to leave your questions in the comments section down below that you would like me to answer in a future video. Another secret to retiring stress-free is discussing your plan for healthcare. So there's 3 healthcare situations I want you to consider. One is the years that you retire and you're potentially not on Medicare. So if you retire at 60, 62, 63, you're not quite to the Medicare age yet, which is 65 today. So if you're retiring before that, you're going to need to budget and plan for healthcare out in the marketplace. You may get COBRA from your employer that you're retiring from. You may have to go out into the marketplace, get an Obamacare plan. These plans generally are going to be more expensive than the plan you were on or receiving when you're getting that from your employer for you and your spouse. So generally, if you're retiring before 65, we would want to see you budget somewhere between $500 and $900 per month per person in your budget in these early years of retirement prior to you getting on Medicare. Now, the next piece is 65. Once you get on Medicare, listen, Medicare is very comprehensive, and you may look at a supplemental plan, you may look at a Medicare Advantage plan, but you want to seek professional help in deciding what's best for you. Your Medicare plans, they are different throughout the country. A lot of times your drug deductibles, things like that, are based on your zip code, and a Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplemental may work better for you. Now, keep in mind as well that there's a 7-month window. 3 months before you turn 65, you can begin getting on Medicare or enrolling, selecting your plan. The month you turn 65, and then 3 months after. So that 7-month window, you do not want to miss it, okay? Now, the last contingency I want you to think through is long-term care, home health care, and nursing home care. If you're retiring at 60, you're not even thinking about this stuff. This is stuff that you may face 20 and 30 years from now. But what happens to retirees many times is they're living their best life and enjoying their wealth, their retirement, and then all of a sudden, one of their parents, mom and dad, they get sick. They need long-term care, home health care, and they can see how fast the money goes. And all of a sudden, it's a wake-up call as to, oh my gosh, Do I need long-term care insurance? Do I have enough to self-insure so that I'm not a burden to my kids down the road? These are the things we want you to identify before you retire or if you're new in retirement. These are the things that we address with our successful families at REAP Financial to ensure that if you do need long-term care or home health care insurance, we can address that and get that now in your earlier years of retirement, which in most cases it's more inexpensive. Now, the older you get, obviously it may be more expensive, but there's also many families of you out there that are in a position where you've saved enough through the years where you're going to be able to self-insure. So the thing is, I don't want you paying for insurance you don't need, and many people do. Part of our planning at REAP Financial is to identify this and see if we can provide some cost savings or the lowering of your budget in your retirement years, because every dollar that stays in your investments that you're not having to take out are working for you or compounding for you, and that can really extend the life of your savings through retirement. And the last secret, and this may seem really simple, but it's setting clear goals and setting a budget. Identifying pre-retirement or newly in retirement how much your portfolio can sustain. How much do you need to live to maintain your lifestyle? That's what you must identify. Your budget is the most critical number in your retirement plan. It's not rates of return. It's not inflation rate. It's not your Social Security timing. It's not even your tax rate. It's the budget. It's ensuring you're not spending too much too early in retirement that you're going to withdraw your assets too soon. We also need to identify what assets, whether it's IRAs, 401ks, or more, what assets are you going to live on first? Or maybe it's a blend of assets to ensure that you're draining your accounts in the right order so that you don't lose that tax diversification I was talking about. Your budget, like I said, is the most critical number. And even $300, $500, $700 plus or minus per month per year can literally derail a retirement. Let me propagate some hope. Many of you may have identified a number that you're comfortable with, but we don't want you to feel like you've got to live on a stringent budget if you don't have to in retirement. A lot of the work we do at REAP Financial is helping families identify what their portfolio can sustain, how much they can spend confidently, and let you go enjoy your wealth. So many families, they live like this because they don't know. They haven't done the proper planning, and that's no way to live, particularly when we're talking about retiring successfully and stress-free. We want you spending your wealth, enjoying your wealth, gifting your wealth to causes you believe in, helping your family along the way, whatever it is. But you have to identify that number first. You have to set clear goals and identify that budget. All right, make sure you click on the next video to learn more why the budget is the most critical number, the most important number in your retirement plan. You don't want to miss this. And I want to remind you to hit the subscribe button down below as I drop new content every week.